Okay, what in the world just happened here? If you've ever witnessed a narcissistic injury, that was probably your reaction. At least it was my reaction every time I encountered this situation. Whenever you bear witness to a narcissistic injury, it's incredibly confusing. You don't understand how you got from point A to point B. And that was something that kind of always bothered me. So I've done a lot of research on the topic to figure out what it is, what's really going on there, how to handle it, and what does it all mean for me. So in this video, I'm going to talk through 6 things you need to know about a narcissistic injury. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Common Ego community. My name is Christina, and today we're talking through 6 things you need to know about a narcissistic injury. On this channel, we talk about narcissistic abuse, its connection with spirituality, and we attempt to answer the question, where do we go from here? So if that all sounds good to you, be sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you can be notified whenever I post new videos. And if you're already subscribed, thank you and welcome back. So I'm just going to do a quick outline of what we're going to walk through here because there's kind of a lot to unpack. So first, we're going to talk about what a narcissistic injury is and what it looks like. Second, we're going to talk about what's going on beneath the surface of all that anger. Then we're going to talk about 3 common causes of a narcissistic injury. And number 4 is an important one, why you shouldn't intentionally cause a narcissistic injury and what you should do instead. Number 5 is how to protect yourself from a narcissistic injury. And finally, the 6th thing you need to know about narcissistic injuries is what we can take away from this experience to help us grow. Because really, in all of this, that's what it's all about. We can't change what we've been through, but we can change where we're going. Okay, so what is a narcissistic injury? A narcissistic injury usually looks like a very disproportionate reaction, angry reaction to a trigger that you may not have even known was a trigger. It could be something simple. It could be a question like, well, why didn't you do that? And suddenly that person is off on a rage and you're like, whoa, what just happened here? It's confusing. It's incredibly confusing because you weren't looking for a fight. Or in some cases, maybe you were in an argument and you were saying something that you knew was somewhat triggering, but you didn't think it was gonna go from here to here like that. It's confusing because you've never experienced this with anyone else before. And the reason you've never experienced it before is because it's a narcissistic injury that you're witnessing. So you probably aren't going to witness anything really like this with someone else, unless that person is dealing with some serious stuff. And in that case, if they present a disproportionately angry reaction to something you've done, if it's not a narcissist, that person will probably realize and apologize. Okay, so the second thing we need to know about a narcissistic injury is what's going on beneath the surface. And this is the really, really important part that kind of tied it all together for me. When you're dealing with it, when you're in that and you're just being screamed at or whatever it is that the narcissist does to hurt you when they're angry, you're incredibly confused. Like, what did I do that was so bad to deserve this kind of reaction? Like, how could I have hurt this person so badly? And, you know, at the same time, they're saying things and doing things that are triggering to you, so you're getting angry. So what's going on here is actually kind of interesting and it makes so much sense. So the reason why it's so confusing is because it doesn't really have a lot to do with you or what you did. So whatever happened, whatever you did or said was a trigger. So yes, you were involved and you played some role in what was going on here. But it was, in most cases, a very innocent role. You have no idea that you're going to hurt this person to this level. But from there, it all has to do with what's going on inside the narcissist. So the anger that they're projecting upon you gives you a hint of how they're actually feeling inside. So we know that the narcissist has and projects a false self, a false persona that they believe in, and they need to believe in it. So the narcissistic injury pokes holes in that false persona that they can see. So in that moment, they can see, okay, maybe I'm not perfect. Maybe this grandiose self isn't real. And that ends up being incredibly painful because when they poke holes in that false self, they can see what's underneath. And what's underneath is usually a lot of hurt, a lot of pain and shame. So the anger is another defense mechanism. It is the last-ditch effort for them to stop seeing who they really are, to stop seeing their true colors, which isn't the anger, it's what lies beneath the anger. It's a lot of pain, shame, loneliness. It's not good stuff. So instead of seeing that and facing that, they use you to make themselves feel better. And now, from everything we know about narcissism, this makes perfect sense. Narcissists are selfish to the point that they will hurt other people to get what they want. And in this case, in the case of narcissistic injury, what they want is to stop feeling pain. And you're going to be incredibly confused because all this rage that's there, the rage is in direct proportion to the pain that they're feeling. And none of that has anything to do with you or what you said. What you said or did was just a trigger that initiated this response that has everything to do with the narcissist and nothing to do with you. When you look at it in terms of how we usually respond to people, it's cause and effect. You know, I did this, so you did that. And we kind of have a feel for what's normal and what's not, what's right and what's wrong, what's fair and what's unfair. And then when you experience a narcissistic injury, it doesn't fall into any of those categories. It's just way out there. Okay, so now we're going on to 3 common causes of a narcissistic injury. So the first very, very common cause is a real or perceived criticism. You can actually criticize a narcissist and cause a narcissistic injury. Not every criticism will cause a narcissistic injury. It very much depends on the person and their pain and what they've experienced in their lives. And it probably also has a lot to do with their current state. You know, if they're having a bad day, it's probably easier to poke holes in that false self. But the perceived criticism is where it gets really interesting, because these are the cases where it's just incredibly confusing. So there's a saying going around that you can cause a narcissistic injury by asking a narcissist to pass the salt. And it's kind of a funny saying, but if you've ever caused an injury by a perceived criticism that was actually not a criticism, you understand the relevance of that saying. So having been through the experiences that I have, I actually don't doubt that saying something like, "Can you pass the salt?" could cause a narcissistic injury. I once asked the narcissistic person in my life to sit at the dinner table instead of sitting on the couch. It was seconds before I had this person this far away from my face, all red. He was all red and screaming to the point where I was just covered in spit. It was just being like drenched in spit because he was screaming at me. And I'm like, I don't understand why you're so angry. But it wouldn't stop. He couldn't let go of the anger. He had to keep attacking me. And I wasn't even fighting back because it was so ridiculous. So again, I mean, I wouldn't doubt if somebody said, you know, I said pass the salt and then I had somebody right here screaming in my face. I wouldn't doubt it. I really wouldn't doubt it. So the second common cause of a narcissistic injury is strictly enforced boundaries, especially at first. So when you first set a boundary with a narcissist, if they're used to walking all over you as they like to do with everybody, if you stop them from doing that, they're going to feel violated. In reality, you're not violating anyone else, you're just protecting yourself. So you're not reaching out and hurting anybody, but you're just saying, here's my line and you cannot cross it. That is a very, very real threat to a narcissist because they need to cross that boundary in order to feel real. So your boundary is going to be a threat to them, and that could lead to a narcissistic injury. And the third common cause of a narcissistic injury is any attempt to hold the narcissist accountable for their actions. And this will happen more likely, more often it'll happen with something that is a little bit more severe. So like if you caught the narcissist cheating and you're just trying to prove it, or maybe trying to prove it to other people, or the same with stealing or lying. You can think of it as anything that would change someone's perception of the narcissist. So anything that would chip away at that false self, that false persona, that this is a great person who would never do these things, that is definitely going to cause a narcissistic injury. And sometimes it could even be things that aren't quite as severe, but that's going to very much depend on the case. Okay, so the fourth thing you need to know about a narcissistic injury is that you shouldn't cause one intentionally. And so I'm going to talk through why and what you should do instead. So one reason why you shouldn't cause a narcissistic injury intentionally is because it's really not something that we should be trying to do, is hurt other people. Even if those people have hurt us, even if they deserve it. It's not our job to enforce karma. We have to let it go, or else we will invite that bad karma upon ourselves. And it will come back eventually. So it's not a good idea for that reason to intentionally cause a narcissistic injury. Another reason why it's a bad idea is because it could really be unsafe. You don't want to intentionally hurt somebody who is emotionally unstable. Even if this person hasn't been physically violent before, but especially if they have been physically violent, it's just never wise to intentionally set someone off in a rage. Okay, so instead of causing a narcissistic injury, what you should do is try to get yourself safely away from this person as much as you possibly can. Some people still need to have the narcissist in their lives, or they choose to for whatever reason. But if you do still need to have that person in your life, or want to, set the boundaries. And if you don't need that person in your life, just find a way to get out. Walk away. Either just do it cold turkey, I'm out of here, or gradually get yourself out. Everyone has a different situation. So you do what you feel is right for you, and do what you feel is going to be the safest for you. So number 5, the 5th thing you should know about a narcissistic injury is how to protect yourself. And this one is especially for those people who still have to be with a narcissist in their lives, or have to have a narcissist in their lives for whatever reason. The first thing you can do to protect yourself is to understand the narcissistic injury for what it is, and that you don't have to get swept up in that craziness, because it's not yours. It's not yours. And the second thing you can do to protect yourself, and the first thing will help, but do not engage. So understanding that this is not your craziness that's going on here, just don't engage. Do what you can to diffuse the situation and get away. Even if it's just saying whatever the narcissist wants to hear, whatever it is, just diffuse it and get away, because no good is going to come of arguing at this point. So the 6th thing we need to know about narcissistic injuries is what to take away from the experience. It's a very unpleasant experience, and if you've been through it, you definitely know. The best takeaway that I've found in this is the danger of anger. So anger, it plays a role, and we shouldn't necessarily judge ourselves for being angry. When you're getting over narcissistic abuse, anger is an important part of the process. But it's not a place that we should really stay. Anger in general is not super productive. One thing that we can take away and work on for ourselves is just being aware of whenever we're feeling anger and how we're handling it with the people around us, and if there's anything that we can do to work on the other feelings that we're having to maybe improve our own situation so that we don't have to feel angry anymore. Easier said than done. But in the case of a narcissistic injury and the stuff that we've seen and witnessed, we can see how incredibly damaging anger can be. So if we do nothing more than just make ourselves aware of when we are angry and why we are angry and what's really going on, then that could be something that we take away from this experience that was terrible and turn it into something positive. So those are the 6 things we should know about narcissistic injury. And I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please hit the like button. And if you aren't already subscribed, consider hitting that subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be notified whenever I post new videos. And I'll see you next time.